The software base we've been able to build up over the years that is oriented towards this kind of film, this kind of character kind of work. We could build a lot of power into the models that we build so that the animator could control it in a controllable way. Like if you look at the sculpture of Woody here, and someone else did the sculpture based on some drawings that we had. And then I got the sculpture in and I sort of analyzed it in terms of, you know, what I would need. I talked to John and the director and some of the animators and said, okay, well, what emotions does Woody have to have? And unfortunately for me, he had to have every emotion under the sun. Essentially, he's one of the stars. So it was like, okay, well, we got to do a lot of things here. And so I basically, you know, drew the grid on him because I needed to digitize him. If you can catch the grid lines that I marked up on his face, those are points in space that define his face. And you know, we have characters that are even more complicated than this. We tried to keep Woody fairly simple so that he was manageable, but you know, the simplest form of controlling Woody is you deform those points. You know, you move them around. But once you digitize it, you get a sort of fairly neutral pose. I've moved the eyes a little bit. And then I also did the body, built the body out of basic primitives that I could then work with. But carrying through with the face, then I would go in and I'd say, okay, you know, what do I need in terms of facial muscles? You know, first I'd add sort of a neck control, so I could do something, you know, I could swing his head over like this and have him, you know, turn his head side to side. But we built a system that allowed us to build in essentially facial muscles, you know, to sort of represent muscles in a simple form. I mean, it's not the full complexity of the human body by any means, but still facial muscles that could allow him to, you know, lift the side of his mouth, to twinkle his nose, to puff his cheeks out. You know, so I can get the basic shapes running, and then I could, you know, then I'd add a control here to sort of change his jaw, so he can open his mouth, and then I might add another control to make him smile. So you build a sort of software that allows that level. And even, you know, you could think of that as being pretty primitive, you know, in some sense, but that's the kind of thing that, you know, 10 years ago we really weren't thinking of building. You know, it was more, you know, we're just trying to get anything up on the screen, you know, and we've come a long way, and the whole industry has come a long way in those 10 years, 10, 15 years.
The trick is to try to capture as much information as I can, get all the details, say, around the mouth, around the lips, around the eyes, all the expressive areas, without having so much detail in there that I get wrinkles. I want to keep the surface smooth, particularly on Buzz, who's supposed to have a very smooth face. So the idea is to try to make a balance between those, and also to make any surface features that, say, intersect the face intersect as smoothly and as naturally as possible. So I've got to balance several things. Each one of those white dots on his surface is one of those points that you saw me digitizing a moment ago. And from that we've constructed all the surfaces. I can get rid of most of the other stuff, and we can see a rough approximation of what he'll look like when he's rendered in the film. After this, I'll add, you know, all the color and all that other stuff to it. But this is pretty much all of the geometry, all the shape information that he'll have in him.